I'm just going to borrow a phrase from one of the star players on our next team, which is the Los Angeles Clippers. And the trend is that they do not have an identity, which is what Paul George said about them, which I did sort of like. I don't know how seriously he meant that. I heard Tim Legler on JJ Redick's podcast kind of say like that happens, the natural fluctuation, or maybe it was JJ who said it, whatever. They were agreeing that that mentality can creep in over the course of a year, even if you're on a good team, whatever. But they're 30th in defense the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They are one of the teams that just allowed 1 million points to the Pacers, who we were just talking about on Monday night, right before we recorded this. They allowed 133 and kind of got blown off the court by Indiana. I don't really know what's going on with James Harden. Contesting his own teammates, putting Tyrese Maxey in a headlock during play. There's just a lot of wackiness. He's kind of saying he's doing it to pump up his team. I've stopped trying to solve what's going on with James Harden most of the time, but the question here, I think, is just, did we overhype LA? Do they have a championship pedigree, a championship identity, or did we overreact to the middle of the season? That's the real or fake here that I think we have to answer.
Oh, this is one of the more difficult ones because overreacting to what is essentially 44 game sample size. It was I broke it down. They were 34-10 before. They're 8-10 in their last 18. Before that, they were 34-10. Overreacting to that feels impossible. But now
it's so big.
Yeah, now when you look at them play, and especially the timing of it, the timing is what makes these last 18 feel like a separate 40 because you're getting so close to the playoffs. What I wrote down for him, it says, I don't know if it's real or fake, but I do think it's too late for it to change before the playoffs. I think we are probably going to see this iteration of this team go into a postseason matchup against they're pretty much locked in to the Pelicans matchup because they lost the 4 seed to them. So even if they jump back up to 4 from the 5 slot, New Orleans is just slotting back down, and all that changes is the home court advantage. And so, yeah, the defense,
which is the least home court advantage-y series of any I can think of. The Pelicans and the Clippers. I mean, sorry.
Oh my God, no one's at either game. That's so funny. Yeah. I don't know. I'll call it real, I suppose. James Harden, the way that he's regressed as a scorer in these 18, it's only 2 points. It's like 8 or 9% on his true shooting percentage, and even more than that, he has gone from very efficient field goal percentage, very efficient from the 3-point line. He's like 41% from the field and 32% from 3 in his last 18. And so his true shooting percentage is up because his free throws are fine still. But the way that you punish a defense when they overhelp on passes, when they overreact to you as a playmaker, you're not really punishing a defense by getting to the line after that. You're punishing a defense by hitting the shot that they cede to you. So that change, it's just felt like it's completely changed the dynamic of what Los Angeles has been able to do offensively, and simultaneously the slide that they've had on the defensive end, their offense, even on like their best nights now offensively, it feels like they're almost just trying to break even, just trying to like barely survive what they're giving the other team on defense. And so on top of that, you hear so much about, this team's different when Westbrook's back. This team's different once you get Westbrook off the bench. He changes, he gives them that identity. And it's like, I do agree when you watch them that there is some truth to that. Like he invigorates them with a lot of very Russell Westbrook plays that nobody else on the team, Kawhi, Paul George, very reserved. They're going to show up, give you the points, give you the assists, but not really like scream in anybody's face. You only get that from Westbrook on this team. But if you have Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George healthy, I want you to play elite basketball. I want you to do that if you're an elite team. So yeah, I'll call this trend real. I don't love where the Clippers are at lately.
I don't have any disagreements with anything you said. I'm very curious. We can give Harden the credit for maybe adjusting his game a bit over the past 2 years, but even especially this season. At the same time, he gets to the rim less. We'll see if you combine that trend with the fact that these officials are already putting some things into place to give exact types of plays we've seen him live on, a lot less credit in terms of free throws.
Mm-hmm.
What that looks like in the playoffs, it does need to pick up, and we saw it in bits and spurts with the Sixers last year. I think this team is going to need, considering how thin it is, they're going to need those huge explosive Harden games on offense, just like the Sixers did, even though we might not think of it that way because they have Kawhi and Paul George and Norm Powell even and whatever. But the biggest concern to me that I would say a game like the Pacers game illustrates, but really every team has a way to pick at about the Clippers, is their center rotation is just not good enough.
It's terrible.
I don't think.
Oh my God. Like
it's like teams have just solved Zubats, right? Like Ty Lue can hype him up all he wants to, but defensively, he's food. And Mason Plumlee's even worse. And Tice isn't even playing. I think there's some matchups where maybe Tice could have some value. I think he's a little better if you want to switch. Maybe that helps. He's obviously more athletic than the other two guys. PJ Tucker is old. He's not really himself. I think they miss Nick Batum a lot. I think even though he's older and not his peak Portland version, obviously he's still able to just switch and play defense and be big, and they miss that ingredient. So that is the probably the thing that concerns me the most, is just if a team really goes at that, I don't know how they respond. They don't really have an adjustment outside of hoping one of those very limited bigs can just have a miracle playoff run.
Yeah, and it's like and when you think about the top of the West, Karl Anthony Towns, if he's back, I think he's slotted to be back bare minimum like early in the first round series, but they're hoping to get back like regular season. Am I right on that?
Sounds like it, yeah. Yep,
okay.
I think that's right.
Well, even low-key, even without Karl Anthony Towns, the Timberwolves are fucking massive compared to the Clippers.
Yeah.
The Nuggets obviously outclass them as far as size goes. The Thunder, you have more room to breathe in that matchup. They're smaller, but that's assuming you like make it to the conference finals and you get to see the Thunder if they make it as well.
Yeah, but the Pelicans matchup you mentioned, like the thing about the Clippers is their centers are rough, but part of why their centers get screwed is they're small everywhere else. So you get like Turner, right? Turner's a pop big. So they were guarding, Zubats was guarding TJ McConnell in this game, and they're trying all this stuff to try to limit what Zubats has to do so he doesn't have to move his feet and everything. But then you're having a tiny guy contest against a Miles Turner 3 or a rim protector who's like Amir Coffey, or it's just it starts to fall apart unless all these guys are. It's kind of like how the Warriors play defense, and you have to have such huge physical athletic guys playing at 115%, otherwise that style doesn't work.
Yeah, and I talked about this last week. The Clippers Pelicans matchup specifically. The Clippers are 1-3 against New Orleans this year. Kawhi and Paul George and Norm Powell have played in all four of the matchups. Harden and Westbrook have played in 3 out of 4. None of their numbers are particularly good. They've only scored 110 points in one matchup. Zion is averaging like 26, 5, and 5 on phenomenal efficiency against them, and they have just so many guys that, like, when you take Herb Jones, obviously, but then even like Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall, just like a rotation of good wings to throw at. We know playoff Kawhi, he's scoring over anybody. He's an all-time great player, but he's going to tire him out. He's not invincible. On top of the fact that Paul George, he's played well lately, very up and down this season. And so, yeah, I think the Pelicans match up really well with them. And even if you do end up getting like the clear-cut number one best player in that series, assuming Kawhi ascends to what we know he could be, there's just like the Pelicans are going to have a lot of advantages in other areas of the floor. And so, yeah, that matchup worries me. Beyond that, like you're really looking at that first round, and then you're looking at who they would see in the conference finals. Which
is Denver. We know how that's gone.
I hate their matchups with Denver. Like they don't have anybody to throw at them. And what's another thing about Zubats that's crazy is his pick and roll with Harden is underrated, a big part of their offense, a big part of what allows Harden to still, you mentioned he doesn't get to the rim the same way. His penetration into the paint is oftentimes largely contingent on Zubac's rolling with him and him being able to hit that pass. Zubac has great hands. He's a great pick and roll finisher, but necessitating him being out there, even though everything that does to your defense and not really having an answer for it on your bench, that's scary stuff. So yeah, I don't love where the Clippers are at. It feels like they're kind of limping into the postseason. I don't know who they play over the next couple of weeks, but unless it's like Detroit and Washington 14 times, I don't think they're gonna like just get all their shit together and be ready to go by the postseason.
They have Philly next. Obviously, no Harden on Wednesday. They have Charlotte and Utah twice. So hey,
Okay.
I mean they'll get some nice W's. But yeah, no, it's weird. It's always tough when you're hoping. Again, I do think there are a lot of similarities to the Warriors here, where you're just hoping that older, injury riddled, or question marks as far as health types of guys just turn it on and reach a crazy athletic peak in order to fix some of your problems. That is a tough thing to ask. I think Kawhi has proven he can do that, but Paul George less consistently, Harden less consistently, Russ is coming back from an injury, and the center spot there's really no answer for. So yeah, it's weird. I agree with you the way you said it at the beginning, where it's like, how did we trick ourselves for 3 months about a team that had these questions, and now the questions are like popping up again? It doesn't really make sense.